All right, let's talk about two of the hardest working and honestly most underappreciated organs in your entire body, your kidneys. They're doing so much more than you probably think, 24/7, just to keep you in perfect balance. So let's dive in and see what these unsung heroes are really up to. First up, we're going to explore the incredible and kind of surprising jobs your kidneys are playing. And really, you can forget about thinking of them as just some simple filter. They're actually the master chemists of your whole body. So let me just ask you this right off the bat. Do you think your kidneys just make pee? I mean, it's the first thing that comes to mind for pretty much all of us, right? But believe me, that is only a tiny, tiny fraction of the whole story. I mean, just look at the sheer scope of their job. Of course, they filter out wastes, that's a given. But they also manage your blood pressure. They balance your electrolytes, and they produce hormones that actually trigger red blood cell production. The cells that carry oxygen everywhere you need it. And on top of all that, they even activate vitamin D to keep your bones strong. This isn't just a filter, it's basically mission control for your body's stability. So you're probably wondering, how on earth do they pull all of this off? Well, to find out, we have to zoom in. I mean, way in, down to the microscopic level, and meet the real workhorse of the kidney. So get this. Each of your two kidneys is packed with about 1 million of these tiny, super intricate units called nephrons. Yeah, 1 million. That means you have 2 million microscopic factories all working in parallel all day, every single day. The scale of it is just, it's staggering. And here it is, the nephron. It has this really brilliant structure with two main parts. First, up at the top, you've got the filter, which is called the glomerulus, that little tangled ball of capillaries. Blood comes in, it gets filtered, and then all that fluid passes into this long, winding tube. And that's where the real magic happens. It recycles everything you need and sends the rest out as waste. It's a purification plant and a recycling center all in one. Okay, now let's zoom in even closer on that filter, the glomerulus. It is an incredibly sophisticated 3-layer barrier. Now, you don't need to memorize all the part names, but its job is absolutely crucial. It lets water and tiny waste products pass through from your blood, but it holds back all the important stuff like proteins and red blood cells. Think of it like a high-pressure, ultra-selective gatekeeper. All right, so now that we know what the kidneys do and kind of how they're built, how do we actually know if they're working well? This is where it gets interesting. It's like a little detective story of how we measure kidney function. The key number here is called the glomerular filtration rate, or just GFR for short. The easiest way to think about it is like the kidney's processing speed. Basically, how many milliliters of blood it can clean per minute. It really is the single best overall measure we have for kidney function. So how do we measure this GFR, this processing speed? Well, the gold standard method is super accurate, but it's also really complicated and expensive for everyday use. So in the real world, doctors use this really clever workaround. They just measure something in your blood called serum creatinine, which is just a normal waste product from your muscles, and they use that level to estimate the GFR. And this analogy really nails it. See, your muscles are constantly producing creatinine. When your kidneys are healthy, they filter it out at a really steady rate. But if your kidney function drops, that creatinine starts to build up in your blood. It's just like a smoke signal. If the level is rising, it tells doctors there might be a fire, a problem with the kidney's filtering ability. And when that fire does start, it can happen in two very different ways. The kidney system can fail suddenly, like a bolt of lightning, or it can decline slowly and silently over a long, long time. Let's compare the two. So on one hand, you have something called acute kidney injury, or AKI. This is like a sudden power outage. The system just goes down, and it happens fast, over just hours or days. It's usually triggered by a specific event, like severe dehydration. Then, on the other hand, you have chronic kidney disease, or CKD. This is a much slower burn, more like the wiring in a house slowly degrading over years. The damage is gradual, and a lot of times it goes totally unnoticed for a long time. Now, for that acute crisis, the AKI, doctors use criteria like you see here to figure out how severe it is. I know this chart looks pretty complex, but the key takeaway is actually simple. Doctors are tracking two main signals. How fast is that creatinine smoke signal rising in the blood, or how much is urine output dropping? The bigger those changes, the more serious the stage of injury. For the chronic disease, though, the assessment is a little different. This heat map is all about showing risk. It combines two things, your GFR, your filtration speed, which goes from good to bad as you go down the left side.
And then across the top, it tracks the amount of protein leaking into your urine, which is a big sign of damage. All you really need to know is the further down and to the right you go, deeper into those orange and red zones, the higher your risk is.
Okay, so that might sound a little scary, I get it, but the great news is that there is a ton we can actually do. So let's finish up with some practical steps we can all take to protect these absolutely vital organs.
So, what can you actually do? Well, first and foremost, manage your blood pressure and control your blood sugar. High pressure and high sugar are by far the two biggest threats to your kidneys because they just hammer those delicate little filters over time. Also, maintaining a healthy weight and, of course, not smoking are both huge. And finally, just be mindful of overusing certain drugs, like common anti-inflammatories, because they can be pretty tough on your kidneys. So the next time you pour a glass of water or just feel, normal, take a second and thank your kidneys. They are working tirelessly around the clock just to keep you alive and in balance. So the question is, what are you going to do today to help them do their job?